Hi there, and welcome to Hyundai Power Products. My name is Adrian, and today we're going to be looking at this HYBC5200X Brush Cutter. So I laid the contents of the packaging out on the table so you can see exactly what you get. First of all, we have the motor with its upper shaft, one of the T-bar handles connected by the throttle cable. You have the other T-bar handle here. We'll go through the assembly of this. We have the two-stroke mixing bottle, we shall go through that. The user's harness here in this bag. The bump head with a trim line. The brush cutting blade. The lower guard. The toolkit. The lower shaft with a trimming head. And finally we have the user's manual. Now I do recommend that you read the user's manual thoroughly before use. So that's the contents of your packaging. So we're going to start with the assembly of the two handles into this bracket here. So I can go into the toolkit and I can take out the Allen key that undoes these 4 bolts. So I'll just loosen the 4 bolts first of all. Okay, so that's loose. This handle will go in here until it comes to a stop. This handle will go in the other side until it comes to a stop. Now, before I tighten up the bolts, these handles can be adjusted back and forth until you find what's most comfortable for you. And on the same note, by loosening the bolts on the underside of this handle, it can be slid up and down this shaft again to make it more comfortable for you. So I'll just line those two handles up. I'm going to set them at 90 degrees as a starting point. And I'll just tighten up the 2 clamps. One each side first of all. I'll do the diagonally opposite ones. Okay. And then I'll just tighten them down. Okay, so that's the T-bar handles fitted. So I'm going to move on to the assembly of the lower shaft. So we're going to fit the guard first of all. So again, in the toolkit you'll find the larger Allen key. I'll just remove the 2 bolts that are supplied in the guard when you receive it. We're going to fit this guard onto the shaft. So I'll just place it roughly in position. Put the 2 screws in. Get them both started first of all. We'll tighten them down so far equally. Oops, nearly there. And then when we get to the bottom, finally tighten the last couple of turns. Okay, so that's a lower guard fitted. So we've got 2 options here. We can fit the brush cutter blade or the trimmer head. I shall show you both options. What you will see is that on the side of this unit here is a hole, and in the drive flange on the inside a corresponding hole. Line up the 2 holes and you can lock them together by putting the Allen key in the hole, and that locks the head. Now I can use the box spanner that's been provided. It's a left hand thread on this nut. You turn it clockwise to undo it. There we are, all the pieces come off. So the thick washer here is the drive coupling. This needs to go on in all applications. So with that on, we'll start with the brush cutter. The writing side, the side with the printing on, goes up towards the bump head so that when you're using it you can see the writing. So this being the underside, you can't see the writing. And it needs to sit neatly on this register on the drive flange. Then we have this washer. Now it's got a hollow side and a domed side. Hollow side against the blade. Then this donut ring here with the donut facing upwards. And then, anti-clockwise to tighten, as we remembered, we put the nut on. So again, we need to go to the hole on the side. Just line up. Can't quite see it, it's coming round, there it is. I can line up the two holes, so that now locks the shaft. And again, anti-clockwise to tighten, just making sure that it's on its register. It is. So with that in place, turning anti-clockwise with the nut until it's tight. That's the blade fitted. Now you need to make sure that it stays on the register when you're doing this. If you're off center slightly, it won't clamp flat and you'll get dreadful vibrations. It'll be dangerous. So yeah, that's the blade fitted. So at this stage, I could take off the protective cover. Okay, it's not sharp, but it's a lot better if you have the cover on while you're fitting it and taking it off and when you're storing it. And on the same note, there's a cutting blade here which trims the trimmer line when you're using the trimmer. There's a little plastic cover on there which can be removed as well, so just be wary that that can be quite sharp as well. Okay, so that's the brush cutter fitted. We'll take it off now and change over to the bump head. Just put the protective cover back on. Okay, so to remove it, exactly the same story. Find the holes. There's the two holes lined up. In with the locking key, and then clockwise undo the nut. As I said earlier, it's a left-handed thread. So we'll remove the nut, remove the bell washer, remove the dome washer, and we can remove the brush cutter. Just show you this little locking method. As you can see, this key will go through there. There's a corresponding hole in here. So when I'm lining it up, I'm turning it round so that this hole lines up with this hole, and that's how I'm locking the drive shaft. So when I fit the bump head, I don't need the nut, the washer, or the bell shaped washer. I do need the drive coupling on, and again, anti-clockwise, holding it with the Allen key. I can just spin it on, hand tight, and there we are. That's the trimmer head fitted. So to fit the two halves together, couldn't be simpler really. We've got it in the correct orientation. You'll see this pin on the bottom which goes downwards. Slide the coupling in till it's fully home, and tighten up the clamping knob really quite firmly, clockwise, and that's the two halves fitted together. And again, for storage or for transport, undo the knob anti-clockwise and pull out the lower part of the shaft. Just moving on to the harness, it has a quick release mechanism for the clip. You pull on the tab and the clip will come away. You can put the clip back in, put the tab back through, and you're fastened. And this clip simply fastens through this loop here. So you can leave this on the machine at all times, and when you want to connect up, you bring your harness in. I haven't unpacked this properly yet. You bring your harness in, put that through there, and you're fastened to the machine. When you want to release, you're away. I'm going to tidy this cable up in a moment, but when it comes to adjustability, there's a bolt on the bottom of here, and you can move this harness clip or hanging position up and down on the shaft, as well as the T-bars can be moved up and down as well. So you can pretty much set the machine up for yourself the way you find it most comfortable. So just going back to the toolkit, there are two plastic clips like this, and you can simply get the plastic clips over the cable and fasten the wiring loom into place on the shaft here. There we are. And that keeps the throttle cable all safe. Let's move on to the two-stroke mixture for the petrol. Now we do supply the bottle for mixing, and you'll see two lines at the top. The first line is the petrol line. So we'd put the bottle on a nice level surface and top it up with fresh unleaded petrol just up to this line. No more, no less, just up to that line. So take your time and be careful with this. Just take a little bit of time. If you put a little bit too much in, you can always tip a little out. Okay, so that's the petrol. And then using a semi-synthetic two-stroke mixture oil, we would top it up to the second line, which is a 40-to-1 mixture. And it is written here clearly on the bottle. Now, if you were a tiny bit above the line with the two-stroke oil, not to worry. Obviously, you didn't want to have double what you're supposed to have, because that would make it a 20-to-1 mixture. But yeah, 40-to-1, so very carefully, up to there with the petrol, then up to the top one with the two-stroke oil. Once you've got the quantity correct, screw the lid back on and give it a good mix-up between the petrol and the two-stroke oil before you put it into the fuel tank. So having mixed up our two-stroke oil, I can just remove the fuel filler cap. Okay, place it to one side, and I can pour our mixture into the fuel tank. Now, pretty much you want to leave it about a ½ inch from the top of the tank. I wouldn't overfill it. We need to have a little bit of room for expansion of the fuel in the tank, okay, and the gases. So, with the fuel tank filled, back on with the lid. So we're going to move on to the starting procedure. There are 3 or 4 things we need to do to start it. So first of all, we need to prime the fuel. Now underneath the carburetor in this area is the primer bulb. I shall show you that. So yeah, primer bulb is here. Again, with the machine level, we push the primer bulb maybe 6 or 7 times when it's new, and that will draw fuel from the fuel tank up through the primer, through the carburetor, and you'll see it passing back down the return line. So when you've got that completely full, I mean, it doesn't matter how many times you do it, but as long as it's completely full, it could be 20, it doesn't matter. So you keep pumping until you see fuel coming up and fuel returning back to the tank, and you will actually hear it. So that'll be the carburetor primed. So the next thing, with a cold start, we pull out the choke lever. Now you'll see it came out and clicked. If I pull the throttle, it goes back in again. So you pull the choke out and it clicks, and when you pull the throttle, it automatically turns the choke off, as you saw. So choke on, and then we need to turn the switch on to enable the spark. So that's there in the up position with the 1 pushed in. That would be off, that would be on. So that's switched on, and we're now ready to start pulling the machine. So holding the machine firmly on a steady surface, normally best to do this on the floor, take the pull start or the recoil handle and pull it briskly. Now if it starts or attempts to start, you might hear it chug as if it's about to start. We can just pull the throttle to turn the choke off. So that's the choke off. If it has started, leave it for a second or two, pull the throttle, that'll turn the choke off, and just gradually increase the RPM until it's running smoothly, just to let it warm up for a few seconds before going for full throttle. So that's if it starts or attempts to start. So you'll pull it a few times. It may take up to 10 times before you get a chug out of it, especially if it hasn't been run before or hasn't been running a long period of time. So you pull the recoil, you hear that chug as if it's attempting to start. So then just pull the throttle to switch the choke off, like that, the choke is off, and then go for the start again, and it should kick in and run at a slow pace. Then gradually increase the revs as it gets warm. Once it's warmed up, after 10 seconds or so, you should be able to go for full throttle. Okay, so that's the starting procedure. When you come to stop the machine, let go of the throttle, let it run back to idle and tick over for perhaps 5 or 6 seconds so that the engine is running at its minimum speed, and then simply switch it off on the switch. For a warm start to restart, just switch it on the switch, pull start it, and it should fire straight up. So there we are, I've got the harness on now and we're ready to go. I think under my circumstance I'd probably move this down a little bit so that it's just nicely balanced. It's balanced a bit front heavy, so I've actually got to pick it up. So I'd move this clip forward a little and that'll balance it back out and it'll be a lot more comfortable. I think I'd probably move these handles back a little as well. So there we are, that's the assembly and the controls of the HYBC5200X Brush Cutter. Well, I do hope you found this demonstration useful. For more information on this or any of our other products, visit www.hyundaipowerproducts.co.uk. I've been Adrian, and thank you for watching.